I was never supposed to go from C student to CEO, but I'm here.
Here at the Black Ambition third annual demo day, CEO Felecia Hatcher, Black Ambition, thank you so much for the time. I know you're running on fumes, right? It's been a couple of crazy few days, but here you are though. It's just over, and I'm seeing those entrepreneurs out there. I saw the faces on the looks on their faces when they were getting them checks, especially the $1 million earner. I mean, it must feel good, although you're running on films, to see that you're changing lives.
Yeah, I mean, it feels amazing, right? Just to not only know that we're changing lives, but the lives that those entrepreneurs are going to change as a result of the investment, the mentorship, the support, the community that we've built. Like, to me, that is what matters the most.
Yeah. So we had that strange elevator moment, right? We're on the elevator together. I'm like, is that her? Is it her? Okay, it is. But after that was over, I was thinking through the night as you were talking, and you and Pharrell were on the mic, and I'm thinking, I said, what do you see? What do you look for in an entrepreneur? What is that?
Yeah, we look for quite a few things. You know, I think we're one, product market fit, right? Like, is it the right moment? Are they building? Are they the right team as well? Then really looking at the founder itself. Like, do they have the risk tolerance? Do they have the tenacity? Do they have a level of resource magnetism? Like, no matter what, they can go out and get it and find the resources that they need and attract it to their business. Those are a lot of the things that we look for. And then with Black Ambition, we kind of have this unspoken rule that we're investing in for-profit companies, absolutely, but we're also looking for people and entrepreneurs that we know are going to have a connection, like a deep connection back to their community. And so, like, it's that other thing that we're looking for in the conversations that we have, in the interview process, as they're in their mentorship pods. We're also evaluating them as well. And then it's that it factor, right? Like, are they building the right product at the right time, and are they the right person to be building the company as well?
Yeah. Nebraska pitch competitions are very unique, right? Because this is Ashley Sims and Bill in Tulsa down in Oklahoma. I love what she says. She says all it takes is sweat equity, right? You're not doing it, it's sweat equity, right?
When you're on stage, I think a little swag, a little entertainment factor in it as well. And then passion, right? Like, you know, when you meet an entrepreneur and the passion is just exuding out of them, they're going to figure it out. They're going to knock it out the park. They're going to weather the ebb and flow of entrepreneurship, because it's not easy as well. And like, you feel that when you're having conversations with them. And then the other part of that is vision, right? Like, the organization was founded by a visionary. And so seeing entrepreneurs showcase like the bigger vision that they have, that they're building something much bigger than themselves, like, those are qualities and characteristics that make them like the ideal candidate for a Black Ambition entrepreneur.
Yeah. Pharrell was just sitting here. He said that by 2030, right? I asked him, what does he want to see the number as it stands now? I believe Black Ambition, 92 million that they have distributed.
They've raised.
Black founders. Let me make sure I get the number right. 92 million. What is that number?
Yeah. So 92 million is the number that those entrepreneurs have raised in venture capital.
Venture capital.
Yeah. And so the entrepreneurs that we invest in, as well as we work with about 250 entrepreneurs a year through our cohort style mentorship program. And so that's considered the Black Ambition Network.
Okay.
And so over the course of the 3 years, we've worked with 750 entrepreneurs, and they've raised over $92 million. And then they do about $27 million annually in revenue.
Combined.
Yeah.
Now, how much, as far as the 92, how much has Black Ambition given out total?
Yeah, so as of today, close to $10 million.
Close to $10 million, okay. And so Pharrell says by 2030, he wants to see that number north of $1 billion.
Me too.
How do you get there?
Yeah, I mean, we get there with strategic partners that align with our vision, that understand the ROI of investing in Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs at the highest level. They not only become massive contributors back into their communities, they're good customers as well. They're opening up innovative processes in which corporations can acquire those companies. Like, there's so many different, they become vendors for these. Like, there's so many different ripple effects that happen when you invest in these companies at the highest level. But then we also need those companies to be funders and supporters of our work, so that we can mentor those entrepreneurs, so that when they get the opportunities, they get the funding, they know what to do on how to grow and scale those companies. So it's that, right? It's strategic partners. And then it's also really good retail partners. So the e-commerce, not just the e-commerce companies that we're working with, but we invest in a lot of CPG companies as well, and making sure that they can get their products on the shelves or the virtual shelves as well.
Yeah. Again, the initiative Black Ambition, this is empowering Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs, Black and brown people, and the focus areas: tech, design, healthcare, consumer products. Why those areas?
Yeah, we looked at high growth areas in which
That's what you consider high growth areas?
in Black and brown communities, absolutely. And so they're growing by leaps and bounds in the technology industry. We see a high majority of those companies in consumer packaged goods. It's a low barrier to entry for them, but there's a high upswinging potential for them as well. And then we're also looking at in areas in which culture is an asset. Like they don't have to explain away their culture in order to be able to do business there.
Yeah.
And so like those are a lot of the reasons why we pick those sectors. And then we're also looking at like which sectors are right for innovation, and then also need a higher level of respect in innovation from us. And so healthcare is one of those sectors, right? Yeah. We know the large number of disparities in the health space as it relates to Black and brown communities. Well, we want to invest and fund those innovators that are building the technology and the healthcare solutions to make sure that that is a place that is much more helpful to us, and can alleviate some of those disparity numbers that we see.
Yeah. Again, Felecia Hatcher, CEO, Black Ambition. Take me back to that young Felecia Hatcher, right? Because I'm looking, I got C's in school too, right? So much that my dad left me back in the 7th grade because he didn't think I learned enough, right? Here you are getting C's. Why were you getting C's in high school? Me, I was lazy. I didn't do homework. I was only looking at girls and I was not paying attention. Why did you get C's though?
Same story. My mom hates when I tell that story. I'm like, if I can major and minor in anything in high school, I majored and minor in the 2 B's, boys and basketball, right? So that's where I spent most of my time, unfortunately, right? Yeah. But I also, not dating myself, like I love MacGyver as a kid. So I was like one of those kids that would tinker. Like I taught myself how to code at 16. I could rewire cable into my room. But like as far as what showed up in the classroom.
Were you
like
doing all that because you weren't punishment because you got C's or was it?
Because I was just a naturally curious kid, right? And I think, one of my favorite quotes is an Albert Einstein quote. And it says, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life feeling that it's stupid. And that was me as a kid, right? Like I was being judged by what was happening in the classroom, but not all the other stuff that I was doing. I was a big sister. I was on 5 different sports teams. I had over 1,500 hours in community service, but that didn't equate to my GPA. And so there's more than one pathway to success. And like that is the thing that's most important, right? And I think Black Ambition exhibits that. We hear the titles of non-traditional and underrepresented and underestimated. Well, there's more than one pathway to success for them as well. And that's why we do the work that we do. But like that was my story as a kid. Like I had a guidance counselor who told me I'd never make it to college. But she went on to say I should just get a job or go to a vocational school. She didn't even say community college. And community colleges accept everybody. Right. And so it's unfortunate that at 15, 16, and 17 years old, you can have people that put such a limited belief on your life and they're projecting that. And so with Black Ambition, when we talk about things being uninterrupted and being limitless, and you look at like our logo and our branding and being the sky and constellations, is making sure nothing stands in the way, especially doubters. We do not have capacity for any of those people to disrupt what we're doing with Black Ambition.
2002, you're at Lynn University, right? You swore off entrepreneurship. And you said, look, I don't want to do it anymore. But you did get back in. You started a business while you were in Lynn. What business was that? Why did it fail? And what did you learn?
It was an educational consulting company. It sounded much more sophisticated than it really was. I had won $130,000 in scholarships as a C student. And what immediately happens after that is your mom starts telling all her church friends that you can teach their kids how to do it too. And so I actually turned that into a business. And so companies like, or organizations like DeVry University, the Urban League, the YMCA, start hiring me at 19 years old to build out their college prep programs and then build out like opportunities for non-traditional C and D students to be able to get into college and then also find scholarships. And so that was my first business, which was a really successful business. Where it failed is I got a contract for $25,000. I thought I was like rolling in the dough. You couldn't tell me nothing. The work started consuming me from this contract that I had. I asked my parents if I could leave school in order to like pursue this as a business. I hired one of my friends, and within 3 months, like they stole the company from me.
Wow.
And so I was devastated, absolutely devastated. And I swore off I would never be an entrepreneur ever again because I had really kind of bet so many things. Like not compromise, but sacrifice so many things in order to actualize this dream, only for it to be taken away from me by somebody that was really close. And so that was my only image of entrepreneurship, other than my dad being an entrepreneur in the construction space and coming home like dirty and tired every day. Yeah. And so like those are my first 2 early experiences with entrepreneurship. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. Like I want to be as far away from this as possible. But that was what happened to me with my first business.
Right. Well, you got back in, right? It was a famous story that came out. She thought she would never be an entrepreneur again. And then a recession hit.
Recession
hit. And then you find you and your husband, you're going full steam ahead with entrepreneurship. And it doesn't sound like you regret that decision.
I don't regret that decision. Yeah. I think if I were to do it over again, I'd make some different choices. But I don't, right? And it was at a time where there was an economic downturn of 2008. I did not know. Well. We all collectively experienced it. Yeah. But it was such a defining moment for me because if I could have gotten a job back in my field, I would have never pursued another business.
And marketing field, was that it?
Marketing, yes, and experiential marketing. And so that's what led down that path of just not having a check, not having an opportunity, moving back home to my parents' house, not just by myself, but also bringing my husband with me. And so like those moments when your back is up against the wall and you have no other options, like so many of our entrepreneurs have those stories. Like you're just forced to figure it out because you do not have a plan B, C, or D. And like that was the moment that brought me back into entrepreneurship.
Now we're gonna stay on hip hop 50, right? 50th anniversary hip hop. What song what artist or what album got you over that hump as far as motivation, right? Like what was that music playing? Like, you know, like when we go through heartbreak, Saw Days there, right? But what music or what hip hop artist, what album got you through?
Oh, I don't know about hip hop, but rap for sure. I'm a South Florida girl, so it was a combination of Rick Ross and Trick Daddy. I don't know how.
Not Trina?
Nah, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so those two, because it was just like, you know, when you're going through your go-through, it's such an out-of-body experience that oftentimes like the lyrics of just like, although the life experiences weren't similar, but that grit, that tenacity, that get up and get it, like that was really helpful in me in those moments. And so it was definitely between those two.
When Hustling came out, it just was like...
And Jay-Z, I would say Jay-Z as well. Yeah.
Hustling, I mean, that was a great time. But back in 2021, you decided that you're going to leave, you know, Black Tech and, you know, go over and you're going to help Pharrell build Black Ambition. Who pitched who? You know, y'all, this is demo day, right? You're telling everybody else to pitch. Who pitched who on this CEO position?
You know, the interesting thing is it started with a conversation with his chief of staff at the time. And was telling me about like Black Ambition. And I think it was a little bit of a pitching both, right? Because I had understood what the organization was and saw the announcements. And I thought that there were just some holes that we could fix at the organization that I had co-founded at the time. And by the next day I got a phone call. It was just like, do you want to run this thing? And I was like, run what? You know, because I didn't think the conversation was going in that direction. But I definitely thought that there was some ways that we could be helpful. And so like that's where the conversation initially started with his chief of staff at the time.
And when you talked to him, what was the thing that got you to say yes, other than the money?
It was, so being an ecosystem builder for the past 10 years, like literally building Miami's startup ecosystem, making sure that the Black community was not only an active participant, but like a financial beneficiary of the like innovation economy had been my work for the past 10 years. The one thing that we hadn't been able to do was actually physically like write direct checks to companies and to entrepreneurs. Like we were able to get the VCs to come together, look at them, invest in them, but like personally being able to say like this company needs investment and I can bet on this, like I hadn't been able to do that in the work that I've done. It built the community to support every avenue of that happening. And so that was the thing that really stuck out to me with the role. I would say the other part of that is building family legacy is something that's really important to me. And I just realized like that was a component that Black Ambition represented, right? And so Pharrell being the visionary and like the architect and coming up with the idea and the importance and the partners for Black Ambition, but then building upon what that means. He often talks about like it being like a ripple effect, right? Or like the echo. He starts it and then it continues like this cycle. And so being able to build upon that with his family legacy, I think as a part of that was something that was really important for me.
Yeah. did he say a phrase, anything at all to get you to just like click at all? Pharrell's a good innovator, right?
Yeah, no, he is. Hey sis, right? It's usually that.
That's it. Hey sis was the thing?
I mean, it sparked a conversation, right? I often tell the story of like us just having a conversation about Lovecraft Country, right? And like that
Uninterrupted
quote of "Who are you, Uninterrupted?" And like that was a big connection point for us. It was a conversation with not just him, but then also Virgil, who actually created the logo for Black Ambition. Many people don't know that. And so like that conversation with the three of us around what does it actually mean to build Black Ambition, to fund them, to support them, was one of the very first conversations that we had together. And then really kind of building the thing from there, building the team, building the infrastructure and support so that we're now here celebrating 100 companies at the 3-year mark.
Yeah. For those people who may not ever or have not heard Virgil, how would you describe him in one word?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like if you flip through the dictionary and you look up visionary and innovator, he's going to be right there at the top. I've only had the experience to meet him once, but our conversation was purely around Black Ambition and what is required. And then also the role that the mentorship played in him getting to where he is. And like, those are so many of the pillars of our organization, and kind of building upon like the initial conversations that him and Pharrell had in the very beginning that led to so many different fingerprints on the organization.
Yeah, now that we're here, right? Take me inside of the organization. Nonprofits are a very tricky thing for me. I like for-profits.
Yeah, me too.
I know that the nonprofits, the operational costs, there are a lot of people who look at that expense and say, this is where all the money gets locked up in operational costs because you got to pay staff, and none of the money really gets to the people as intended to, right? How is Black Ambition going to, navigate?
Yeah, I mean, we're literally sitting in the distribution of the funding, right? And so it's very clear where our funding goes because we directly financially support entrepreneurs with the work that we do. And so, we have our programmatic work that we do, like the mentorship, the HBCU tour, the HBCU pre-accelerator to help those entrepreneurs become better applicants of our prize and any other accelerators and programs like that. We have our So Ambitious dinners that we do across the nation. And then we have like our big moment where we support the entrepreneurs. And so we invest about $3 million into about 35 to 36 companies every single year. And now we're at 101 entrepreneurs that we've invested in.
Yeah. How do you get that number up? Do you got to go back to your partners and say, hey, we need more funding coming in? Do you go to other entertainers who got a lot of money to say, bring some money in? How do you get that number so you can be giving out more every year?
Yeah, it's all of the above of what you just said, right? And so finding partners and funders that align with the vision, continuing to have conversations with our current partners as well. Most of our current partners are multi-year partners, which is absolutely amazing, and looking for more institutions, family offices, organizations, and foundations that can also make those multi-year commitments to our organization is extremely important. I think, when you're talking about supporting Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs at the highest level, it's not a one-off thing, right? Because then it's not helpful to the entrepreneurs at the end of the day. It doesn't allow you to build the momentum that turns into the tangible results. And so, the more we get conversations all the time with partners that are interested in supporting our entrepreneurs at the highest level. And then we've just showed that the model and our thesis around supporting Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs work.
Yeah, and so again, that $92 million is how much the companies have raised. And you guys have given out that number in 20 plus, 10 million, $10 million. They're bringing in collectively 23 million when it comes down to revenue.
For 27. You gotta include all the zeros.
I don't want to miss any number at all. 27 million, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Looking at that again, Brookings Institute came out with a very in-depth research paper. It's called "Who Was Driving Black Business Growth?" Insights came out in May 23. And in that finding, they found some very interesting stats. And give them all to you. 2020, right? Black business employers, they employ about 1.3 million people, created more than 48,000 new jobs, and added an additional 1.7 billion to the payroll of the U.S. economy, right? And then it says Black business ownership, it continues to grow, but if it continues to grow at its current rate, right, which is about 4%, it will take 256 years to reach parity to the share of Black America, right? But if you want to reach parity in 15, you need a 74% growth. And if you want to do it in 25, 44%, and so on and so on. How can we speed this up?
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from my mentor, Myron, is wealth has a need for speed. And so things need to happen faster for entrepreneurs in order to even begin to close the wealth gap. What I've realized in this work is that there's so many institutions, people, corporations that have gotten really comfortable wasting the time of Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And so that part has to stop,
yes.
right? Getting them the funding faster is also something I think from a nonprofit organizational standpoint, I'd love to see that shift happen just in that industry alone, because we are forcing them to continue to qualify over and over again to be able to receive funding. The other part of that is the respectable amount of funding, right? And so I think in the past 3 years, we've seen a lot of initiatives stand up to support Black entrepreneurs specifically, but like their processes and their cycles are so long that it takes forever for those entrepreneurs to actually get the funding that they need in order to grow their companies. And so like there's some changes that need to happen in how we support entrepreneurs.
Structural changes.
Structural changes, absolutely, as a whole, so that we can get them the money faster, that they can build faster, they can hire faster, they can continue to raise additional sources of capital much faster as well. And then I think the other part of that is we see a lot of funding and support in the very beginning stages of entrepreneurship for Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs. As they start to grow and scale their company, the funding available to them at those next levels is almost non-existent. And so everyone's doing a really good job of getting them to start, but when they start to scale, which is required for them to become massive contributors to their communities, to be able to become massive employers, then that capital that they need, that growth capital, is even more extremely hard for them to be able to get.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I love the spirit though. When I was at the private dinner that you guys had, Cedric Entertainment was buzzing the fields. I'm sitting listening to these entrepreneurs talk. One sits at my table talk about freight costs and this, and I'm like, oh, they getting busy, right? I love that, right? When you hear that talk, right, and you hear, hey, we're getting it.
Yeah. I think we are farther along than most people will give us credit for.
Absolutely.
I think as a race, just in respect in the venture startup space as a whole. The other part of that is, a lot of these entrepreneurs are building very sophisticated systems and solutions that don't get the respect that they need, right? And so as a result, you get a lot of like, well, they need financial literacy. I'm like, they passed that. They are past that. What they need are the right experts at the right moment, at the right time, so that they can grow and scale their companies. And so like we actually learn a lot from the companies that are in our network, and our corporate partners equally learn a lot from our entrepreneurs. One of the things that we launched last year was like a learning lab series where we bring our entrepreneurs into some of our corporate partners for 2 days. It's literally a two-way street, even though they're working with some of the C-suites at some of the top brands across the globe. Those companies leave saying to us, like, we learn more than the entrepreneurs probably learn from us.
Yeah.
But it's an absolute two-way street. And it's because a lot of them are, top graduates of their classes at the universities that they've gone to. Many of them have worked years in corporate America, have run and exited successful businesses as well. And so there's these multitudes of stories to tell about who these actual entrepreneurs are. They are not always just like literally like starting from the bottom, now they're here. Many of them have a high level of subject matter expertise, years in the game, and then have seen problems that they can solve through the businesses that they've launched. And so giving a higher level of respect of who they are is also really important.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, problem solvers, right? People who solve the problem. They are the best entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Within Black Ambition's portfolio and what you guys have seen from companies that you've helped, I often get that when I call my investor friends and VC friends and I ask them about some of the companies that I'm being pitched on, they always say, Jabari, are they companies or are they tools? Right? What are you guys sitting on, companies or tools?
I would say a combination of both, right? And so, and that's all because we invest in so many different stages of entrepreneurs. All of our entrepreneurs are early stage, but then we also invest in HBCU entrepreneurs. So current college students or, post five years. And so we have a mix of entrepreneurs that we're invested in. I would say most of them were companies, maybe not all of them were startups is the real thing, right? but a lot of them have built companies that can play really well in the startup space or in the venture space, but they're small businesses at their core. So they're not going to rapidly accelerate in 2 years with a repeatable, fundable model, but they are building companies that may be around for the next 10 or 20 years, and they're family businesses or like their lifestyle businesses. And that's also just like the dynamics of in Black and brown communities. You need a mix of both, right? And I think more than anything, what we saw during the last economic downturn over the past few years during the pandemic is that people went back to small businesses as the core that kept our communities afloat.
Yeah.
And so you always need to be nurturing both of those at the same time. The companies that are going to accelerate in high growth, but then the companies that you can rely on that are going to be in your communities, that are going to be in the mom and pop shops, that are going to solve local solutions to local problems. You need to be able to invest in both, and we're able to do so.
Yeah. What do you say to the entrepreneur that just can't get the fund? That's trying and trying and trying. I always go back to a sister named Adrian Smith, company Blitz Champs, card game, has an NFL license.
Yeah.
For some reason, some VCs or people, they're not interested because the sister's having a hard time maybe attracting the funding that she wants so she can scale. What do you say to people like that?
Look at alternative sources of funding. Like I said, not every company is well suited for venture capital, and you got to be very careful to make sure that you want to go down that road. You can actually play on that road. You can actually offer some sort of return, and you can scale and grow at a rapid pace where it makes sense. Not every company is like that, and that's perfectly fine. I think for government is what one of the largest employers of the world, or the largest employers of the United States. But then they also are some of the largest contractors, right? And I've seen some really amazing companies get the funding that they need from local government, from federal government as well. And it's what they get to fuel their companies. Some of our companies have received SBIR grants that allow them to get the capital that they need coming from the government. I would say continue to apply for pitch competitions. They serve a really, really important role of getting entrepreneurs unrestricted capital, oftentimes serving as like that friends and family round for them. Also looking at crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding. We crowdfund every Sunday in the Black church. Like, it's not new to us.
You mean with the plate pass on?
Seriously, right? Like, the utility of like a Kickstarter, Indiegogo is the exact same thing. Like, peers are coming together with a small amount of money to help you get to your goal, to be able to fund the thing that you've done. That's not foreign in the Black community.
Yeah.
It's like, it's existed in the Caribbean for generations, called partner. And then on the continent of Africa, literally generations, is called susu. So like, this coming together to like fund things is not new to us, but it's definitely an underutilized tool that you can play really, really well in the absence of in the absence of venture capital, and oftentimes to be able to fund your thing much faster. You look at like Angela Benton, who's been able to raise, I think she's raised over $1 million in equity crowdfunding. Max Tuckman, who we had come in and do like a learning lab for our entrepreneurs, the first Latina to raise over $1 million in equity crowdfunding. So it's like definitely a possibility for these entrepreneurs to like literally use their social capital, their peer networks, to raise the money that they need to do in order to grow and scale their companies, or at least give them a little bit of runway while they're playing the venture game.
Felecia Hatcher, CEO of Black Ambition. 2 more things to let you get out of here, because you're CEO, right? You're busy, right? Even though it's nighttime.
It's nighttime.
You're probably gonna be going to bed after
There's
this,
a party
right?
out there.
Looking deep into it now, at that dinner, you said something that was very intriguing. You said that Black Ambition, this initiative, is a return on investment for our ancestors' sacrifice.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. There's our...
And by the way, Pharrell said he loved that. You Jay-Z'd him. Do you always do that, huh?
We have a thing back and forth, yes.
Right. If you Jay-Z him, what does he do to you? Does he bean a sequel you?
Maybe.
How's that?
Maybe, a lot. We often talk so much about return on investment in the business space. Absolutely, it's super important. But I think from a cultural standpoint, a return on your ancestors' sacrifice is also something that's really important. There are people that have come before you that you only get to do what you're doing today because of their sacrifice, right? And no matter who you are, from a cultural standpoint, what your background is, all of us owe the people before us that level of attention, care, dedication, grit, and tenacity to what we're doing. And so entrepreneurship will punch you in the gut more times than you can ever be able to count. Like, I can attest to that myself. But those moments where I wake up and I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I don't want to build this company anymore. Like, any of those things, natural feelings that you have as an entrepreneur, remembering who came before you and what they sacrificed in order to do so is really important. I'm the granddaughter of a Jamaican sugarcane and yarn farmer. Like, that's my history. And I know what my grandfather did so that I can actually be able to do the work that I'm doing. He paid ultimate sacrifices. It was really hard, walking miles in order to be able to sell his yam and his sugarcane to put a roof over my mother's head so that I can actually do what I'm doing. And so knowing that is a thing that is my deep why. And that's what I mean by making sure that we are providing a return on the sacrifice of those that have come before us that paved the way.
Absolutely. I always like to get CEOs and ask them because they are some of the more intelligent people, right? And you're definitely intelligent. You were studying MacGyver. Right? By the way, did you like the car? That was like really good technology. You had a car talking.
I got in a lot of trouble. I used to do all the weird stuff that MacGyver used to do. It was a problem, man.
That was your favorite show, MacGyver?
Absolutely.
It still is today?
Well, you're a teenager, right? Yeah. That was my favorite show. I haven't watched it in years, but hands down,
you go back.
I feel like I can solve any problem with an iPhone, like a rubber band and a paperclip because of MacGyver.
Because of MacGyver. Yeah. Jim Collins wrote a great book, Good to Great. It's my favorite business book because it really teaches you how companies make that transition and leaders, how they lead. What's the difference between a good CEO and a great one?
Ooh, a good CEO listens. Yeah, a good CEO, good leader listens probably more than they talk. And I think that's the difference, right? And so I'm a big person on communication as far as words and how they have meaning and how it affects change. And, communication is at the top of the 4 highest levels of value. Imagination is number 1, communication is number 2. And so, CEOs are visionaries.
Why that order?
And the people that come up with the ideas rule the world, right? If you think about Apple, right? Who is the most impactful person to Apple? I'm asking you I'm turning to
Steve Jobs, I guess.
Why not Steve Wozniak? He actually built the technology.
True.
Right? Or Tim Cook. He took the company from a $1 trillion company to a $3 trillion company. Steve Jobs didn't do that in his lifetime.
Well, at that point, then I would say the customer is the biggest thing to Apple because they couldn't do all of that without the money.
Steve came up with the ideas.
Yeah.
And that's why he's remembered and revered as being the number 1 top contributor to the organization. And so you can have vision, but if you can't communicate that vision in order to make your team do what they need to do, then you don't really have a company, right? And if you can't communicate the value to your customers, you don't have business, right? And if you can't communicate the big vision to the people, when you're an entrepreneur and you don't have money, you need to pull this person from one of the top technology companies to come be your engineer. That is vision at the end of the day. And so having the ideas and then being able to communicate the ideas are the 2 highest levels of value, especially as it relates to someone that's leading a company.
Absolutely. So that makes a great CEO.
That makes a great CEO. That's the top. But there's a lot of components for sure.
Absolutely. Uninterrupted CEO.
An uninterrupted CEO. I like you.
Felecia Hatcher, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much as well.